Christmas dinner was supposed to feel warm, but the air felt like ice. I was sitting at the long oak table, smiling politely at everyone, when my mother-in-law, Janet, raised her wine glass and said, "Well, here's to the replacement wife doing a decent job at keeping my son happy." For a second, I thought I misheard her. The clinking of forks stopped, my husband Ethan froze, and my cheeks burned so hot they could have melted the snow outside. Nobody laughed. Not even Janet. She just stared at me with that smug little smile that always made me feel like I didn't belong. My chest tightened as I swallowed hard, fighting back tears. That was the moment I decided this would be the last Christmas where I let her humiliate me. What would you do if your mother-in-law called you a replacement wife in front of everyone at Christmas dinner? Would you stay quiet or speak up right there? Tell me in the comments. I'm curious. Before that dinner, I honestly thought I had built a decent life with Ethan. We'd been married for 3 years, and I loved him deeply. I worked as a freelance graphic designer, loved decorating our little house in Asheville, and thought I'd finally found my happy place. But Janet never made it easy. From the first day we met, she gave me this look like I was standing in the wrong shoes. Ethan had been married before, to a woman named Claire, who tragically passed away in an accident years ago. Everyone said Janet adored Claire, and I could feel that comparison hanging over me every time I walked into the room. At first, it was subtle. Snide comments about Claire's cooking, how she always set a proper table, or how she would have loved this holiday centerpiece. Ethan would squeeze my hand under the table, silently begging me not to react. But as months passed, Janet's digs became sharper. She'd accidentally call me Claire's name, roll her eyes when I suggested new traditions, and once even told me, "You'll never really fill her shoes, you know." I tried to be understanding. Grief is complicated, right? But that night, at Christmas dinner, her words weren't grief. They were an attack. When she called me the replacement wife, it was like she finally said out loud what she'd been thinking all along, that I wasn't good enough, that I was just filling a vacancy in Ethan's life. And that was the moment something inside me shifted. That night after dinner, I barely spoke on the drive home. Ethan tried to make small talk, but I stared out the window, clutching my coat like it was the only thing holding me together. When we got home, I went straight to the bedroom, shut the door, and let the tears fall. It wasn't just the words, it was the way she said them. Like I was some placeholder until someone better came along. Ethan knocked softly. "Babe, she didn't mean it like that." I turned to him, my voice shaking. "She called me a replacement wife, Ethan. What else could she have meant?" He sighed, running a hand through his hair. "You know how my mom is. She's stuck in the past. Then why does she get to hurt me over and over again?" I snapped. "Why do I have to keep being the bigger person?" He didn't have an answer. He just sat on the edge of the bed looking guilty, and that made me feel even lonelier. For days, I couldn't shake the humiliation. At work, I'd zone out mid-design. At night, I'd replay the dinner over and over. Everyone staring, nobody defending me. Something broke inside me that week. I stopped trying to win Janet over. I stopped letting Ethan convince me to just let it go. And slowly, a different feeling began to grow where the hurt had been. Anger. Cold, focused anger. One night, staring at my reflection, I whispered to myself, "No more." I wasn't just going to let Janet get away with humiliating me. This time, she was going to feel what I felt, powerless and exposed. After that night, I became quieter, but not in a defeated way. Ethan thought I was letting it go, but in reality, I was planning. I started journaling every little comment Janet had made over the years, every petty jab, every time she made me feel small. The list was longer than I expected, and it fueled me. I researched family boundaries, watched videos about handling toxic in-laws, and even spoke with a therapist who told me something that stuck. You don't have to let her keep writing the story. You get to write the ending. That's when the idea clicked. I started preparing for the next family gathering, not with gifts or recipes, but with something far better. My words, my evidence, and a calmness she wouldn't see coming. Janet thought she had the power because I stayed quiet. This time, she was going to see me take control, in front of everyone. The next family gathering came faster than I expected, Janet's birthday dinner in late February. I walked into her house with a calm smile, holding a neatly wrapped box. Ethan seemed relieved that I was trying again. But he didn't know what was inside that box, or what was about to happen. Dinner went as usual, Janet's polite digs, her little comments about how Claire used to do this. I didn't flinch. I waited until everyone had dessert on their plates before I stood up. "I have something for you, Janet," I said sweetly, handing her the box. She looked surprised but opened it, pulling out a beautifully bound notebook. Her smile faltered as she flipped through the pages filled with every word she had ever said to me. "I kept track," I said, my voice steady. "Every time you reminded me I wasn't good enough, every time you compared me to Claire, every time you made me feel like a placeholder." The room went silent. "I am not your replacement wife," I said, meeting her eyes. "I am Ethan's wife. And if you can't respect that, you won't be welcome in our home anymore." Janet's face turned pale. She looked at Ethan, expecting him to rescue her, but he didn't. For the first time, he took my hand and said, "She's right, Mom." Janet put the notebook down, speechless. And for the first time, I felt lighter. After that night, I spent hours reflecting on everything that had happened. The anger that had once consumed me slowly transformed into something clearer, self-respect. I realized that revenge wasn't just about humiliating Janet, it was about reclaiming my voice. For so long, I had allowed her judgments to dictate how I felt about myself. Every smile I forced, every excuse I made for her behavior, every tear I hid, it was all because I believed I had to. But standing in front of her that night, showing her I had documented every word, every slight, I understood the power I had been denying myself. The lesson was simple, yet profound. You don't need to break anyone else to feel strong. You just need to stand up for yourself and set boundaries. Ethan saw it too. He apologized for not standing up sooner and promised to protect our marriage against toxic influences in the future. I felt validated, empowered, and finally at peace. The moral I want to share is this: respect yourself first. Let people see that you are not someone to be walked over. Justice isn't always about revenge in the traditional sense. Sometimes, it's about showing that you will not be diminished. From that day forward, I knew I had reclaimed my dignity, and that was worth more than any holiday celebration, any family approval, or any mother-in-law's opinion. Life after that dinner felt different, lighter, freer, and more in my control than ever. Ethan and I grew closer, finally on the same page about boundaries with Janet. He no longer excused her behavior or expected me to tolerate her digs. For the first time, our marriage felt truly equal, a partnership where my feelings mattered as much as his. I also noticed a change in myself. I no longer tiptoed around Janet or anyone else who tried to belittle me. I began hosting family events at our own home, setting clear rules for respect, and even started mentoring a few of my friends who struggled with toxic in-laws. Sharing my story gave me a sense of purpose I hadn't realized I was missing. Janet, predictably, tried to maintain her composure around me, but the subtle power shift was undeniable. She no longer had the ability to control the room or me. Her snide remarks became quiet observations, and eventually, she adapted or stayed home. I didn't need her approval anymore. Most importantly, I learned that empowerment isn't about revenge for revenge's sake. It's about reclaiming your space, your voice, and your peace of mind. That Christmas dinner was a turning point, a moment where I chose myself over humiliation, dignity over submission. Now, when I reflect on that day, I don't feel bitterness anymore. I feel pride. I proved, first and foremost to myself, that I am not a replacement, not a shadow, but my own person, deserving of love, respect, and a life free from unnecessary cruelty. Sometimes revenge isn't about hurting the other person, it's about reclaiming yourself. That Christmas, I realized that standing up for myself wasn't mean, it was necessary. I found my voice, my strength, and my peace. If you've ever felt silenced or belittled by someone in your life, remember, You have the power to set boundaries and demand respect. You don't need to stoop to cruelty. Just protect your dignity and stay true to yourself. I want to hear from you. Have you ever faced someone who treated you like a replacement or tried to diminish you? Share your story in the comments and don't forget to subscribe for more real-life stories about empowerment and standing your ground.